My parents would take my brothers and me here on a weekend. I remember for the first time seeing the big fireplace down in the basement, and one of Henry's more famous quotations, "If you chop your own wood, it'll warm you twice." And that always stuck with me, something that I think is pretty fitting. He was very self-sufficient, and I think that really speaks to a lot of who he was as a person. I'm Henry Ford III, and welcome to Fairlane, the home of my great-great-grandfather and grandmother, Henry and Clara Ford. Like many historical homes, Fairlane has been repurposed many times. I'm very excited to say that this house is being brought back to life just the way it was when Henry and Clara lived here many years ago.
This will be an historic house with no boundaries, no velvet ropes, and we are going to invite you to use the rooms the way Henry and Clara and their family and their friends would have.
Within this whole nation, there's only a handful of historic estates that are tied to an American icon. To have this here in Dearborn, the home of this individual that really changed America and changed the world. That's what makes it very special and unique, and that's why we're so dedicated to its preservation and recreation. At the foundation of everything we're doing, it starts with real solid scholarly research. So we're putting a lot of energies and a lot of resources into better understanding Henry and Clara Ford, and through them, the evolution of this estate.
We have to look at what is behind the layers of paint on the wall, what is underneath carpeting that is on floors, to really discover the home that Henry and Clara designed 100 years ago. And then the process begins to bring that house back.
We want to make sure that we're presenting what Henry and Clara would have first recognized when they moved in. And it was a much different house than what you see here today. What we do know through film and through photographs, how these rooms changed. And they changed pretty dramatic, pretty quickly.
After 1950, Ford Motor Company acquired the house from the Ford family. At the end of 1956, Henry Ford II gave the estate to the University of Michigan. The university closed it in 2010 to transfer ownership of the estate to a new 501c3 that we have established. That brings us to today. The official transfer was the summer of 2013, and we hit the ground running at that time.
As one can imagine, a project of this sheer size and the detail of this is just overwhelming at times.
In the exposure window on the ceiling, we had found original decoration. So we'll put up a piece of Mylar and actually trace that design so we get all the little nuances about it, brush strokes and other things. Ultimately, a restoration is an interpretation, and it's based on the level of information that you have. Now, fortunately, we do have a lot of information, and that has really helped kind of build the story.
There are photographs, there's film footage of this family, there are written documents, there are invoices, there are letters.
And it's such a deep repository, all the way down to receipts.
They give you a snapshot into a moment in time, into how a room looked, how something was furnished.
We want to recreate and replicate all the furnishings. And it's not just holding something off the shelf. We're trying to really recreate something that does not exist anymore in the highest detail as possible to recreate that aesthetic feel.
There's a lot of components to the project, and they're all exciting. There's a couple arms on some wooden chandeliers that will eventually go back into the music room. So I had to carve the elements and then go leave it. So there's a lot of components to it. And if you don't do every component correct, then it will stand out like a sore thumb.
We're talking right now about how we want to marry authenticity with experience, with preservation, with access. We're not limited with original objects, that we have so much more freedom to be creative, to be innovative with these spaces. We want things to be able to be touched, to be used. Just to give ourselves the opportunity to do that is something historic houses have not been able to do. Imagine coming into Henry Ford's billiard room and actually shooting around a pool.
The house is fascinating, and the interiors are interesting, and obviously it's done on this grand scale.
I immediately fell in love with the place. I fell in love with the craftsmanship in the house. In my career, I'm able to recognize diamonds in the rough, and I'll say in my old age, I was in on that.
We have stopped the leaks in the roof. We know that we have repaired the collapsing foundations and collapsing riverbanks. And so the investment that we're making to restore and bring the rooms back will last. We're putting 10 cents of every dollar we raise into an endowment, so it will grow up and be self-sustaining. Of that goal of what we're raising, the Ford family and Ford Motor Company have given us almost half of that already.
We want to activate this human potential in individuals. We want you to get in the minds of Henry and Clara. We want them to inspire you. We want this estate to inspire you.
Just imagine that young kid who comes through here, they go to his lab and they feel the energy of knowing that's where he experimented and did things.
I would love to see this be a place where real true dialogue and conversations occur amongst visitors.
The stories, the values, the legacy of Henry and Clara is full of messages still as relevant today as they were in Henry and Clara Ford's day. Every single one of us leaves a footprint on this earth. Every one of us can decide what that footprint is.
The story of Henry and Clara is a story that would really appeal to a lot of people in my generation who maybe don't already know it. It's a story of entrepreneurship, it's a story of innovation. This house, seeing how they lived, seeing everything here helps paint that picture.